For 3,000 years, the Galactic Council believed they understood the universe's hierarchy. At the apex sat the ancient Zephyrians with their crystalline minds, followed by the militaristic Corvan Empire with their planet-cracking fleets. Somewhere in the middle dwelt dozens of other species, each knowing their place in the cosmic order. And at the very bottom, barely worth acknowledgement, existed humanity, a young species from a backwater world called Earth, granted the most basic membership only because they had stumbled into faster-than-light travel. The Council had rules, protocols, consequences for those who stepped out of line. What they didn't have was any understanding of what happens when you take everything away from a species that has spent its entire existence fighting, surviving, and refusing to stay down. They were about to learn. When diplomatic envoy Sarah Chun, Chief Science Officer Dr. Maya Okafor, and Cultural Ambassador Elena Rodriguez arrived at the Galactic Council's neutral station for what should have been routine trade negotiations, they carried with them humanity's hopes for a better future among the stars. When their bodies were found floating in the station's waste disposal sector 3 days later, executed for crimes against galactic order, the Council made the greatest miscalculation in the history of civilized space. They had just declared war on the one species in the galaxy that specialized in the impossible. This is the story of what happened when Earth stopped playing by the rules. Admiral Marcus Kane stood before the holographic display in Earth's Strategic Command Center, his weathered face illuminated by the pale blue glow of star charts. At 62, he had seen humanity's first tentative steps into the galaxy, watched as Earth's children spread across nearby systems, and witnessed the condescending smiles of alien diplomats who treated humans like amusing pets. None of that had prepared him for this moment. "Show me the footage again," he commanded, his voice steady despite the rage building in his chest. The hologram shifted, displaying the security feed from Nexus Station, the Galactic Council's primary diplomatic facility. 3 women walked through the gleaming corridors. Sarah Chun, with her confident stride and diplomatic credentials, Dr. Maya Okafor clutching her research datapad containing breakthrough medical discoveries, and Elena Rodriguez, whose linguistic expertise had helped bridge dozens of species gaps. They had been Earth's best, humanity's hope for genuine acceptance among the galactic community. The timestamp showed the final recording of them alive, 1432 Galactic Standard Time, entering Conference Room 7 for what the Council had called routine trade adjustment proceedings. The next footage was from the waste disposal sector. 3 human bodies, stripped of dignity and life, discarded like refuse. The official report from the Council cited treasonous activities against galactic stability and unauthorized sharing of restricted technological concepts. Sir, Commander Lisa Rodriguez, Elena's younger sister, stepped forward. Her usually perfect military bearing trembled with barely controlled fury. "The preliminary investigation is complete. The charges were fabricated. They were executed for refusing to hand over Dr. Okafor's medical research to the Corvan Military Division." Kane nodded slowly. The Corvans wanted Maya's breakthrough in cellular regeneration technology, a discovery that could revolutionize battlefield medicine. When the human delegation refused to weaponize healing technology, the Council had found them guilty of obstructing galactic security interests. The message was clear. Humans were expected to hand over their innovations to their betters, then quietly disappear. "What's the Council's official stance?" Kane asked, though he already knew the answer would only fuel his anger. Ambassador Thekvar released a statement an hour ago. Commander Rodriguez replied, her voice tight. Quote, "The regrettable termination of the human delegation serves as a reminder that lesser species must contribute appropriately to galactic stability. The matter is closed." End quote. The control room fell silent except for the hum of computers and the distant rumble of Earth's orbital defense platforms. Kane stared at the star chart, his mind racing through possibilities, strategies, and consequences. For 3 years since first contact, Earth had played by the galaxy's rules. Humanity had accepted insults, unfair trade agreements, and systematic exclusion from advanced technologies. They had been patient, hopeful that eventually the galaxy would recognize their worth. That patience had just died with 3 brilliant women who had committed no crime except refusing to compromise their principles. "Sir," his aide whispered, "President Martinez is requesting an immediate briefing. The Security Council is convening an emergency session." Kane turned away from the display. "Tell the president I'll be there in 10 minutes. And Commander Rodriguez?" "Yes, sir. Begin Project Prometheus." Full authorization. The young commander's eyes widened. Project Prometheus was humanity's most classified military initiative, the development of technologies and strategies designed for one specific scenario: total war against a superior galactic force. It had been considered theoretical, a contingency that would hopefully never be needed. Today, theory became reality. As Kane strode through Earth's military headquarters, he passed windows overlooking the sprawling cityscape of Geneva. Somewhere out there, families were going about their daily lives, unaware that their species had just crossed a line from which there was no return. The president's briefing room was already crowded when Kane arrived. President Maria Martinez sat at the head of the polished table, her face pale but determined. Around her sat the Joint Chiefs, key senators, and the directors of Earth's most sensitive departments. "Admiral," the president began without preamble, "I've seen the footage. I've read the reports. Tell me our options." Kane activated the room's central hologram, displaying a 3-dimensional map of known space. Earth sat in one corner, a tiny blue surrounded by the vast territories of galactic powers. "Madam President, we have 3 choices. First, we can accept the Council's decision, mourn our dead, and continue playing by their rules." Murmurs of dissent rippled around the table. "Second, we can withdraw from galactic society entirely, close our borders, and hope they leave us alone." Senator Williams leaned forward. "And the third option?" Kane's expression hardened. "We show them what happens when you murder humans and call it justice." The room erupted in discussion. Voices overlapped as officials debated the implications, the risks, the sheer audacity of humanity challenging galactic powers that had ruled space for millennia. President Martinez raised her hand, and silence fell. "Admiral Kane," she said quietly, "you're talking about war against civilizations that could glass our planet from 1,000 light years away. What makes you think we can survive, let alone win?" Kane smiled grimly. "Because they don't understand us, Madam President. They see a young species with basic technology and assume we're helpless. They've never faced an enemy that treats impossible odds as a personal challenge." He manipulated the hologram, zooming in on various human colonies and installations. "The Corvins have superior ships, but they've been fighting the same way for centuries. The Zephyrians have advanced minds, but they think in patterns we can predict. The Council believes in hierarchy, in following established protocols." The display shifted to show human industrial centers, research facilities, and the growing network of colonies that stretched across dozens of star systems. What they don't know is that for the past 5 years, we've been preparing for this possibility. Project Prometheus wasn't just about building weapons. It was about reimagining warfare itself. General Patricia Hayes, head of Earth Strategic Forces, stood up. "Show them the Titan facilities, Admiral." Kane nodded, and the hologram focused on the outer rim of human space. Hidden among asteroids and rogue planets were installations that officially didn't exist. Massive automated factories producing ships, weapons, and technologies that pushed the boundaries of known physics. "We've been studying every piece of alien technology that's passed through human space," Kane explained. "Not to copy it, but to understand its weaknesses. Every galactic power has shown us their capabilities during diplomatic visits, trade negotiations, and cultural exchanges." Dr. Elizabeth Park, Earth's head of xenotechnology research, activated her tablet. "Their energy shields can't adapt to rapid frequency changes. Their hulls are optimized for energy weapons, but vulnerable to kinetic impacts. Most importantly, their tactical systems assume enemy behavior will follow established galactic warfare doctrine. President Martinez processed this information, her expression thoughtful. "You're suggesting we fight dirty." "I'm suggesting we fight like humans," Kane corrected. "The galaxy has rules of war, protocols for honorable combat, established ways of resolving conflicts. They expect us to follow those rules." He paused, letting the implications sink in. "What if we don't?" The room fell silent as the full scope of Kane's proposal became clear. They weren't just talking about defending Earth. They were discussing a complete rejection of galactic civilization's fundamental assumptions about warfare, honor, and acceptable conduct. Commander Rodriguez accessed her own files. The preliminary deployment scenarios are ready for review. Operation Human Shield focuses on protecting our core systems while we mobilize. Operation Long Reach targets their supply lines and communication networks. And Operation Broken Crown. She hesitated. "Yes," the president prompted. Operation Broken Crown is designed to eliminate the Galactic Council itself. The weight of that statement settled over the room like a physical presence. They were discussing not just war, but the destruction of the galaxy's governing body, an institution that had maintained peace for over 2,000 years. President Martinez stood and walked to the room's windows, looking out over the city where Sarah Chun, Maya Okafor, and Elena Rodriguez had grown up, studied, and dreamed of representing humanity among stars. "If we do this," she said quietly, "there's no going back. We'll be enemies of every major power in the galaxy." "Madam President," General Hayes said firmly, "we're already their enemies. They just haven't bothered to tell us yet." The president turned back to the table. "What about our colonies? Our trade relationships? The human civilians living on alien worlds?" Kane had been expecting this question. "We've been quietly evacuating non-essential personnel for months. Our remaining citizens have been briefed and understand the risks. As for trade relationships," he shrugged. "They were designed to keep us dependent anyway." Director Sarah Kim of Earth Intelligence leaned forward. "The Council thinks they've sent us a message about our place in the galaxy. What message do we want to send back?" The question hung in the air as 23 of humanity's most powerful leaders contemplated a decision that would reshape the galaxy. President Martinez returned to her seat, her face set with grim determination. "Admiral Kane, you have authorization to begin preliminary operations. But I want plans, not casualties. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right." Kane stood and saluted. "Understood, Madam President. The galaxy killed 3 of our daughters today. Time to show them what that costs." As the meeting dispersed, Kane remained behind, staring at the holographic display of galactic space. Somewhere out there, alien civilizations were continuing their ancient routines, secure in their superiority and confident in their control over the younger species. They had no idea that everything was about to change. The first phase of Operation Prometheus began 6 hours later, as humanity's hidden fleets received deployment orders and sleeper agents activated across dozens of worlds. The galaxy's greatest mistake had been underestimating the species that had evolved through constant conflict, that had turned survival into an art form. Sarah Chun, Maya Okafor, and Elena Rodriguez would be avenged, and the galaxy would learn why you never, ever corner a human. Captain Jennifer Walsh floated in the zero gravity of her stealth ship's command center, watching the massive Corvin battle cruiser through her vessel's advanced sensors. The enemy ship hung in space like a deadly cathedral, its hull bristling with weapons that could level cities, its crew of 3,000 warriors confident in their ship's invincibility. They had no idea she was there. "Phantom 7 to Phantom Leader," she whispered into her comm unit. "Target acquired. The bastards are right where intelligence said they'd be." "Confirmed, Phantom 7," came the reply from Captain Maria Santos, commander of the Human Strike Force. "Execute Operation Widowmaker on my mark. Remember, we're not here to play fair." Walsh allowed herself a cold smile. Fair had died with Sarah Chun, Maya Okafor, and Elena Rodriguez. What remained was the methodical dismantling of galactic military power, one impossible victory at a time. It had been 3 weeks since President Martinez authorized Operation Prometheus. 3 weeks since humanity stopped pretending to be civilized members of galactic society and embraced their role as the galaxy's nightmare. The results have been spectacular. The Corvin Empire, so proud of their military tradition, had lost 17 ships in the first week alone. Not to glorious battle, but to humans who struck from shadows, used the enemy's own protocols against them, and disappeared before retaliation was possible. All phantoms, this is Leader, Santos's voice crackled through the encrypted channel. Intel confirms this is Admiral Threxcore's flagship, the same bastard who signed off on the execution order. Walsh checked her ship's weapon systems one final time. Her vessel, the Invisible Hand, was humanity's answer to alien superiority, smaller than a fighter, faster than a courier ship, and completely undetectable to galactic sensors. It carried no energy weapons, no missiles, nothing that would show up on enemy scanners. Instead, it carried something far more dangerous, human ingenuity. Weapons free, Santos commanded. Show them what happens when they murder diplomats. Walsh triggered her ship's primary system, and 10,000 hypervelocity projectiles launched in perfect silence. Each tungsten dart was no bigger than a grain of rice, accelerated to a significant percentage of light speed, and programmed with targeting data that had taken human computers 17 hours to calculate. The Corvin shields, designed to stop energy weapons and missiles, might as well have been tissue paper. The darts punched through the battle cruiser's hull at dozens of precisely calculated points. They severed power conduits, destroyed navigation systems, and eliminated the ship's ability to communicate or retreat. In 4.7 seconds, one of the Corvin Empire's most advanced warships became a floating tomb. Target neutralized, Walsh reported, already plotting her escape route. Admiral Threxcore just learned the price of murdering humans. But Admiral Kane's strategy went far beyond simple revenge killings. Even as Phantom Squadron eliminated high-value targets across the galaxy, other human forces were implementing psychological warfare on a scale that alien civilizations had never experienced. On the trading hub of Mercantis Prime, the Galactic Council's economic center, Administrator Chanwei stood before a gathering of alien merchants and diplomats. He looked entirely human, which made his next words all the more terrifying. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings of various classifications, Chen began in perfect galactic common. I come before you today to discuss recent market fluctuations affecting all our enterprises. The assembled aliens murmured among themselves. They had been experiencing inexplicable supply chain disruptions, communication breakdowns, and shipping delays that were costing them billions of credits. As you may have noticed, Chan continued with a pleasant smile, certain critical trade routes have experienced minor difficulties. Cargo ships developing mysterious engine problems. Automated stations requiring unexpected maintenance. Communication relays experiencing technical malfunctions. The Zephyrian trade representative, a crystalline being named Vextora, spoke with a voice like wind chimes. Administrator Chan, are you suggesting these incidents are connected? Oh, they're absolutely connected, Chen replied cheerfully. Earth's industrial network has been very carefully integrated into galactic commerce over the past 3 years. We manufacture components for your ships, process materials for your industries, and maintain systems for your infrastructure. The room grew very quiet as the implications became clear. Now, normally, humans are very reliable partners, Chen continued. We honor our contracts, meet our deadlines, and ask for very little in return. But recently, Earth received some rather disturbing news about 3 of our diplomatic representatives. Corvin General Cathzor stood abruptly. Are you threatening the Galactic Council? Chen's smile never wavered. General, I'm simply informing our valued trading partners that Earth's industrial capacity has been temporarily redirected to domestic projects. We estimate normal production will resume once we receive appropriate assurances regarding the safety of human diplomatic personnel. This is economic blackmail, the Zephyrian protested. This is business, Chun corrected. You see, when you executed Sarah Chun, Maya Okafor, and Elena Rodriguez, you demonstrated that human lives have no value in the galactic economy. We're simply adjusting our trade relationships to reflect that market assessment. He activated a holographic display showing trade route maps across the galaxy. Currently, 17% of galactic shipping depends on human manufactured components. 43% of automated systems use human design software. And 67% of medical supplies rely on human research and development. The numbers hit the alien dignitaries like physical blows. In their rush to exploit human innovation, they had become dependent on it. What are your terms? General Cathzor demanded. Chen's expression turned ice cold. The unconditional surrender of every individual involved in the murder of our diplomatic personnel. The formal dissolution of the Galactic Council's current leadership, and the establishment of new protocols that recognize humanity as an equal partner in galactic affairs, not a subordinate species to be exploited. The room erupted in outrage. Voices overlapped in a dozen languages as alien officials rejected the demands, threatened retaliation, and questioned humanity's sanity. Chun waited for the noise to subside, then spoke one final sentence that would echo across the galaxy. The alternative is that you learn to live without human assistance entirely. While diplomatic chaos engulfed the galaxy's centers of power, Admiral Kane was implementing the most ambitious phase of his strategy. In the hidden shipyards of humanity's outer colonies, a fleet was taking shape that would redefine the concept of warfare itself. Commander Jackson Lee, humanity's youngest flag officer at 37, stood before the assembled captains of Earth's new battle fleet. Behind him, through the massive viewport of Titan Station, stretched a sight that would have been impossible just months earlier. 200 ships of human design, each one incorporating lessons learned from 3 years of studying alien technology. Ladies and gentlemen, Lee announced, today we stop running. Today we stop hiding. Today we show the galaxy what humans can build when we stop trying to be civilized. The ships hanging in space bore no resemblance to traditional human vessels. Where alien designs emphasized grace and intimidating aesthetics, these ships looked like flying industrial accidents, ugly, asymmetrical, and absolutely lethal. The Galactic Council believes military power comes from superior technology, Lee continued. They build bigger guns, stronger shields, faster engines. They compete in categories where they hold natural advantages. He gestured to the viewport. We decided to change the game entirely. Captain Rosa Martinez, Elena Rodriguez's older sister, raised her hand. Sir, what's our tactical doctrine? These ships don't match any known combat classification. Lee smiled grimly. Because they're not warships, Captain. They're industrial vessels with weapons attached. The galaxy has spent thousands of years perfecting ship-to-ship combat. We're going to skip that entirely. He activated the briefing room's holographic display, showing tactical simulations that had taken Earth's best minds months to develop. Traditional galactic warfare involves fleets meeting in open space, engaging with energy weapons at optimal range, and defeating the enemy through superior firepower or defensive capabilities. It's predictable, honorable, and completely inadequate against an enemy that refuses to fight fair. The simulation showed human ships avoiding direct confrontation entirely. Instead, they targeted infrastructure supply lines and civilian populations. They used asteroid fields as cover, deployed self-replicating mining drones as weapons, and turned entire star systems into death traps. We're not going to defeat the Corvin Navy in glorious battle, Lee explained. We're going to make it impossible for them to operate. We're going to poison their fuel supplies, corrupt their navigation systems, and turn their own protocols against them. Captain Singh, commander of the heavy construction vessel Prometheus, leaned forward. What about civilian casualties? The Geneva Conventions? The Geneva Conventions apply to civilized warfare between civilized powers, Lee replied coldly. The moment they executed our diplomats, the Galactic Council declared that humans are not covered by their rules of war. They wanted to fight barbarians. We're going to give them exactly what they asked for. The next phase of human operations began simultaneously across 17 star systems. While the galaxy's attention focused on mysterious ship disappearances and economic disruptions, humanity was implementing something far more devastating: the systematic collapse of galactic civilization's infrastructure. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, automated systems that had functioned perfectly for decades suddenly began producing toxic waste instead of refined materials. The contamination was subtle, designed to cause catastrophic failures weeks after the materials were shipped to their destinations. In the Proxima Centauri communication array, quantum entanglement networks that enabled faster-than-light communication across the galaxy developed synchronization errors that rendered long-range coordination impossible for military forces. And on dozens of worlds throughout Corvin space, water purification systems began experiencing cascade failures that would take months to repair, assuming anyone figured out what was wrong before entire populations began showing symptoms of heavy metal poisoning. The beauty of humanity's strategy was its invisibility. Each individual incident could be explained as equipment failure, human error, or natural breakdown. Only when viewed together did the pattern emerge. The galaxy's technological infrastructure was being systematically destroyed from within. Admiral Threxcore's replacement, General Korthvex, realized the scope of the problem during an emergency military briefing on the Corvin homeworld. "How many ships have we lost this month?" he demanded. His aide, a nervous young officer named Lieutenant Hextor, consulted his datapad with trembling claws. 17 confirmed destroyed, General. 32 missing and presumed destroyed. And 46 currently experiencing critical system failures. What about our industrial capacity? Sir, mining output is down 60% across our core systems. The refineries on Corvin Prime are producing materials that fail stress tests. And our shipyard's construction schedule has been delayed by an average of 8 weeks per vessel. General Korthvex felt a chill that had nothing to do with his office's temperature controls. "Show me the tactical analysis." The holographic display revealed a nightmare scenario. Human attacks weren't random. They were following a pattern designed to maximize long-term damage while minimizing immediate detection. Every strike removed a critical component of Corvin military power, but slowly enough that each incident appeared unrelated to the others. "General," Lieutenant Hextor said quietly, "our strategic analysis department has identified a disturbing possibility." "Yes, sir, the humans aren't trying to defeat us militarily. They're trying to force us to defeat ourselves." The lieutenant explained his department's findings. Every human action forced the Corvins to expend resources, redistribute forces, and implement new security protocols. The resulting inefficiency was costing them more military capacity than direct battles would have. "It gets worse, sir," the lieutenant continued. "Our intelligence suggests similar operations are targeting every major galactic power simultaneously. The Zephyrians have lost their primary research stations. The hegemony's trade routes are in chaos. Even neutral systems are experiencing infrastructure failures." General Korthvex stared at the tactical display, finally understanding the scope of humanity's strategy. They weren't fighting a war. They were conducting a galactic-scale demolition project. "How long do we have before our core systems are completely compromised?" "At current degradation rates, sir, approximately 6 months." The general's communicator buzzed with an incoming priority message. When he activated it, a human face appeared on the screen: Admiral Marcus Kane himself. "General Korthvex," Kane said with cold politeness, "I thought it was time we had a conversation." "What do you want, human?" "I want you to understand something very important," Kane replied. 3 weeks ago, your government participated in the murder of 3 innocent women. You thought you were teaching humanity about our place in the galactic hierarchy. Kane's expression hardened. Instead, you taught us that the galaxy's rules don't apply to us, that your civilization's concepts of honor, law, and proper conduct are meaningless when it comes to human lives. So we've decided to embrace that lesson. General Korth Vex felt his military pride warring with growing dread. Are you threatening the Corvan Empire? I'm not threatening anything, Kane said. I'm explaining what's already happening. Right now, as we speak, your entire civilization is consuming itself. Your ships are breaking down, your factories are producing garbage, and your military is burning resources faster than you can replace them. The human admiral leaned forward, and the beautiful part is that we're not violating any of your precious galactic laws. We're simply refusing to maintain systems that we designed, manufactured, or programmed. We're withdrawing our labor, our expertise, and our cooperation. Everything that's going wrong is a direct result of your civilization's inability to function without human assistance. General Korth Vex realized with growing horror that Kane was right. Galactic civilization had become dependent on human innovation, human labor, and human solutions to problems that other species couldn't solve efficiently. What are your terms for stopping this withdrawal? The general asked. Kane's smile was colder than interstellar space. There are no terms, General. This isn't a negotiation. This is a demonstration. We're showing the galaxy what happens when you treat humans like disposable resources. The transmission ended, leaving General Korth Vex staring at a blank screen and contemplating the collapse of everything his species had built over millennia of galactic dominance. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were taking place as alien leaders finally understood the scope of their mistake. Humanity had spent 3 years quietly becoming indispensable to galactic civilization, then pulled the rug out from under everyone at once. The murder of 3 human diplomats had triggered the most effective economic and military campaign in galactic history. And it was only the beginning. The Galactic Council's emergency session took place in a heavily shielded chamber deep within Nexus Station, the same facility where Sarah Chun, Maya Okafor, and Elena Rodriguez had been murdered just 2 months earlier. The irony was lost on no one, least of all Admiral Marcus Kane, who stood before the assembled alien representatives as the first human ever to address the Council as an equal. The chamber itself showed signs of the galaxy's new reality. Half the usual delegates were absent, their governments too busy dealing with cascading infrastructure failures to send representatives. Those who remained looked haggard, their usual confidence replaced by barely concealed desperation. Supreme Chancellor Vexthor, the ancient Zephyrian who had led the council for over a century, spoke with a voice that trembled like breaking crystal. Admiral Kane, your species has brought galactic civilization to the brink of collapse. Entire star systems are without communication, trade routes have been abandoned, and military forces across the galaxy are operating at less than 30% capacity. Kane stood motionless, his hands clasped behind his back, his expression as cold as deep space. Behind him, displayed on the chamber's massive view screen, was a real-time map of galactic shipping, communication networks, and military deployments. The pattern was unmistakable, a spider web of connections that all led back to human-controlled systems. Yes, Kane replied simply. That was the point. The Corvan representative, General Korth Vex, slammed his armored fist on the council table. You've violated every principle of civilized warfare. You've targeted civilian infrastructure, disrupted essential services, and brought suffering to billions of innocent beings. Kane turned his attention to the general, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. General, I want you to think very carefully about what you just said. You're lecturing me about targeting civilians. He gestured to the spot where the human delegation had been murdered. 3 women came to this station in good faith, seeking to establish peaceful trade relationships that would benefit all our species. They were executed without trial, without representation, without even being allowed to defend themselves against fabricated charges. Kane's voice remained level, but every word carried the weight of humanity's fury. You want to discuss civilian suffering? Let me tell you about Dr. Maya Okafor's research. Her breakthrough in cellular regeneration therapy would have extended lifespans and eliminated degenerative diseases for every species in the galaxy. She was working on medical applications, not weapons. She died trying to preserve the healing nature of her discovery. The Admiral activated his personal holographic display, showing images of the 3 murdered women. Sarah Chun had negotiated cultural exchange programs that would have brought human art, literature, and music to alien worlds while fostering greater understanding between our species. Elena Rodriguez was developing translation protocols that would have eliminated communication barriers between species with incompatible vocal systems. Kane's composure finally cracked, revealing the rage that had driven humanity's campaign of systematic destruction. These women were healers, teachers, and bridge builders. They represented the best of what humanity could offer the galaxy. And you killed them for refusing to weaponize medical research. Supreme Chancellor Vex Thor's crystalline form began to emit the low harmonic tone that indicated deep distress among his species. Admiral Kane, we understand your anger. Mistakes were made. Perhaps we can negotiate appropriate compensation for your losses. Compensation? Kane's voice carried a dangerous edge. Chancellor, you seem to misunderstand the situation. I'm not here to negotiate. I'm here to explain the new reality. He manipulated his display, showing the current state of galactic civilization. Trade networks in chaos, military forces paralyzed, entire sectors cut off from essential supplies. For 3 years, humanity played by your rules. We accepted inferior status, unfavorable trade agreements, and systematic exclusion from advanced technologies. We try to earn your respect through patience and cooperation. Kane paused, letting the silence stretch. That era is over. The galaxy has taught us that respect cannot be earned. It must be taken. And power cannot be shared. It must be seized. The council chambers erupted as alien representatives realized the full scope of Kane's declaration. This wasn't a negotiation or even a demand for better treatment. This was a complete rejection of the galactic order that had existed for millennia. Hegemony Trade Minister Klaxvor, a being whose species had controlled galactic commerce for over 2,000 years, spoke with barely controlled panic. Admiral Kane, you cannot be suggesting the dissolution of the Galactic Council. Our civilization has maintained peace and prosperity for your civilization, Kane interrupted, has maintained the illusion of peace through systematic oppression of younger species. You've created a hierarchy based on technological age and military power, then use that hierarchy to exploit anyone who threatens your dominance. He activated another display, showing detailed analysis of galactic economic patterns. Did you know that human innovations have improved galactic productivity by 47% over the past 3 years? Our medical research has extended average lifespans across 13 species. Our engineering solutions have reduced industrial accidents by 60%. Our agricultural techniques have eliminated food shortages on 37 worlds. The numbers were staggering, and several council members exchanged uncomfortable glances. And what did humanity receive in return? Basic trade rights, limited access to obsolete technologies, and constant reminders that we were lucky to be included in galactic society at all. Kane's expression turned predatory. Well, congratulations. You've successfully taught us that inclusion in your society isn't worth the price you demanded. So we've decided to create a better alternative. Supreme Chancellor Vex Thor's harmonic tones became almost inaudible with distress. What are you proposing? I'm not proposing anything, Kane replied. I'm announcing what's already happening. Earth is establishing the Human Alliance, a coalition of species that believe in genuine equality, mutual benefit, and respect for individual sovereignty. The holographic display shifted to show star charts marking dozens of systems that had traditionally been marginalized by the major galactic powers. The Talari, whose environmental technologies you've ignored because they lack military applications. The Nereid, whose artistic achievements you've dismissed because their species is too peaceful to pose a threat. The Kethrin, whose philosophical insights you've rejected because they question your hierarchical assumptions. Each species' name appeared on the display, along with their contributions to the new alliance. It turns out that when you treat species as equals instead of subordinates, they're remarkably willing to share their knowledge and capabilities. The Human Alliance already includes 47 star systems and is growing daily. General Korthvex realized the implications first. You're creating a rival power block. We're creating a better alternative, Kane corrected. And we're extending an invitation to any species that wants to join a civilization based on cooperation instead of domination. Hegemony trade, Minister Klaxvor's panic was now visible to anyone familiar with his species biology. The economic disruption alone would cause trillions of casualties. You can't simply abandon 3 millennia of established trade relationships. Kane's smile was sharp enough to cut Diamond. Minister, I think you misunderstand how abandonment works. We're not leaving you. We're replacing you. The display showed shipping routes, communication networks, and industrial facilities that have been secretly constructed throughout the galaxy over the past 2 months. While you were busy dealing with infrastructure failures, we were building infrastructure alternatives. Every critical system that you've become dependent on has a human control backup. Every essential service that we've withdrawn has been replaced by Alliance-operated alternatives. The scope of the operation was breathtaking. In just 8 weeks, humanity and its new allies had constructed a shadow version of galactic civilization, one that operated independently of traditional power structures. The difference is access, Kane explained. The old system required species to earn their place through military strength or economic submission. The new system requires only a commitment to mutual respect and genuine cooperation. Supreme Chancellor Vex Thor attempted one final appeal to traditional authority. Admiral Kane, the Galactic Council has maintained stability for 3,000 years. Our systems have prevented countless wars, maintained trade relationships, and facilitated peaceful contact between species with radically different biologies and cultures. Kane nodded thoughtfully. You've also maintained systematic inequality, economic exploitation, and the belief that might makes right. Your stability was built on the assumption that younger species would accept inferior status in exchange for inclusion. He gestured to the chamber around them. This station, where 3 innocent women were murdered for refusing to compromise their principles, represents everything wrong with your system. Power concentrated in the hands of the oldest and strongest species. Justice administered according to political convenience, and the assumption that lesser species exist to serve their betters. Kane's expression hardened. Sarah Chun, Maya Okafor, and Elena Rodriguez died because they believed that humanity deserved to be treated as equals. Your council killed them to preserve a hierarchy that depends on keeping species like mine in subordinate positions. The Admiral paused, letting the weight of his words settle over the chamber. Their deaths taught us something valuable. You will never willingly grant equality to species you consider inferior. Respect must be taken, not requested. And power structures that depend on oppression will always choose violence over justice when their authority is challenged. The silence stretched until Zephyrian Supreme Chancellor Vex Thor spoke in tones barely above a whisper. What do you want from us? Kane's answer would echo across the galaxy for generations. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. You've taught us that we don't need your permission to exist, your approval to innovate, or your blessing to thrive. The Human Alliance will succeed without you, despite you, and if necessary, through you. He began walking toward the chamber's exit, then paused and turned back. But I want you to understand something very important. The women you murdered were diplomats, scientists, and teachers. They represented humanity's desire for peaceful coexistence. Their deaths convinced our species that peaceful coexistence with your civilization is impossible. Kane's final words carried the weight of humanity's collective fury. The next humans you meet won't be diplomats. They'll be the harbingers of a new galactic order, one built on the ashes of the old. 3 months later, Admiral Marcus Kane stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station, humanity's new capital ship and mobile command center. Through the massive transparent aluminum viewports, he watched the controlled demolition of an abandoned Corvan military outpost. The explosion was beautiful in its precision, a cascade of light and debris that marked the end of 3,000 years of Corvan dominance in this sector. It was also symbolic. The old galactic order was being systematically dismantled and replaced by something fundamentally different. Admiral, Commander Lisa Rodriguez approached with a status report. The latest recruitment figures are in. 17 new species have requested membership in the Alliance this month. Kane accepted the datapad and reviewed the numbers. It was remarkable how quickly civilization had reorganized itself once presented with an alternative to traditional power structures. Any word from our friends in the old council? Rodriguez allowed herself a small smile. The Corvan Empire has fragmented into 6 separate governments. The Zephyrian Collective is experiencing their first civil war in over a millennium, and the hegemony's economy collapsed last week. Kane nodded thoughtfully. The destruction of galactic civilization's major powers hadn't been humanity's primary goal, but it had been an inevitable consequence of withdrawing from systems that depended on human expertise and innovation. What about reconstruction efforts? Proceeding ahead of schedule, Rodriguez reported. The Alliance's cooperative approach has accelerated development beyond our most optimistic projections. When species work together as equals instead of competing for hierarchical position, progress happens remarkably quickly. Kane reviewed the latest reports from Alliance worlds. Medical research that would have taken the old Council decades was being completed in months. Technological innovations emerged almost daily from collaborative efforts between species with complementary expertise. And, perhaps most importantly, conflicts between member species were resolved through negotiation rather than warfare. Admiral came to the bridge. His communicator crackled. Priority transmission incoming. Kane made his way to New Geneva Station's command center, where Captain Maria Santos was coordinating the Alliance's growing fleet. On the main view screen was a familiar face, President Maria Martinez, calling from Earth. Admiral, the President began, I'm calling to inform you that the UN Security Council has voted to establish a permanent memorial to Sarah Chun, Maya Okafor, and Elena Rodriguez. The Sarah Chun Institute for Diplomatic Excellence will train the next generation of human ambassadors. The Maya Okafor Medical Research Foundation will continue her work on regenerative therapy. And the Elena Rodriguez Cultural Exchange Program will promote understanding between alliance species. Kane felt a tightness in his chest that he hadn't experienced in months. Thank you, Madam President. They would have been proud to see what their sacrifice accomplished. Admiral, Martinez continued, I want you to know that Earth is proud of what you've built out there. The Alliance represents everything Sarah, Maya, and Elena believed was possible. A galactic civilization based on cooperation instead of domination. The transmission ended, leaving Kane alone with his thoughts and the vast star field beyond the viewport. Somewhere out there, the remnants of the old Galactic Council were struggling to maintain relevance in a galaxy that had moved beyond their authority. Other species were discovering that cooperation produced better results than competition. And humanity was learning that respect earned through strength was more lasting than submission granted through weakness. The 3 women who had died in the Council's chamber had believed in a better future for galactic civilization. Their murderers had intended to teach humanity about its place in the cosmic hierarchy. Instead, they had taught the galaxy about the price of underestimating a species that specialized in turning impossible situations into unexpected victories. Sarah Chun, Maya Okafor, and Elena Rodriguez had gone to Nexus Station as humanity's representatives to a galaxy that saw them as expendable. Their deaths had transformed that same galaxy into a place where their vision of genuine equality and mutual respect was finally possible. The old galactic order had measured power by the ability to dominate others. The new order measured it by the ability to elevate everyone. And at the center of this transformation stood humanity, the species that had turned its greatest tragedy into the galaxy's greatest opportunity for positive change. The stars themselves seemed different now, no longer cold and distant, but warm with the promise of endless possibilities for species willing to work together as equals. It was exactly what three remarkable women had dreamed of, and their memory would light the way forward for generations of humans and aliens who believed that the galaxy could be better than it was. Their sacrifice had not been in vain. Their vision had become reality, and the universe would never be the same.